Okay, this video is extremely long overdue. Many of you may not even know what I'm talking about, but way back at the start of this channel, I had a video on 5 characters that needed buffs in Smash as a fun discussion on which fighters would actually see widespread use if only they had just a bit more. I was eventually planning on making the inverse episode where I talk about 5 that need nerfs, but never actually got around to doing it. Believe it or not, I still have the thumbnail for it. Seeing as over a year has passed, my opinions have shifted a lot on who should get slammed with the old balance hammer, not to mention many advancements have been made in the meta during this time, especially with the first albeit questionable official tier list for the game. So in today's video, that's what we'll do. Let's go over 5 characters that need nerfs in Smash Ultimate. I should probably get this out of the way first. Characters like Steve, Kazuya, Sonic, and whatnot will not be included. Not because I don't think they deserve to be toned down, quite the opposite, everyone agrees they should be nerfed in some capacity, which would obviously make for a predictable video. Just like how I didn't automatically default to the 5 worst characters in the game for the bust video, I want to try to avoid the super obvious ones and instead look at those who perform exceptionally well to an almost unfair extent. For some, I might suggest a playstyle nerf, while others may only need a slap on the wrist to an individual attack or two. To repeat, Steve, Kazuya, Sonic, and by extension I guess Aegis are the most deserving of nerfs, but for the sake of keeping things entertaining, they will not be featured since everyone agrees on this stance. First up, we have Min Min. Despite not having as commanding a presence in tournaments as the rest of her Fighters Pass 2 companions, at times she may be an even worse defender than them depending on who you're up against, and it's safe to say arguably no one enjoys going up against her. Min Min takes the notion of range advantage to the farthest point the game can realistically handle. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that some of her attacks have twice the range of the second farthest reaching character in the game. Her attacks are essentially projectiles without the inherent weaknesses of them, such as the risk of being reflected or getting trounced by aerials or strong enough attacks. Now in her defense, she crumbles to pieces when in disadvantage or better yet thrown off stage, so she's not without flaws. It's that getting to her can be such a challenge with how far her threat range is and her few yet effective get off me tools in the form of neutral air, up smash and such. One aspect of her that I find very frustrating for anyone to deal with is the fact that all of her arm extension moves basically have trample. Trample, also known as priority, is the ability for an attack to continue through its animation without being cancelled, even if it collides with an opponent's attack. While this is inherently within every aerial in the game, you don't see this too often in grounded moves except for two-parters, like Joker or Little Max F-Tilt, letting them follow up with the second hit even if the first one planks. How this applies to Min Min is that she has 2 arms, with one arm attached to the A button and the other to the B button, having more or less the same functionality. If she so chooses, she can strike with both arms one after another. You're seeing where this is going, right? The first arm can plank while the second one attacks right through, making it near impossible for you to approach her from the ground while restricting the number of options you have of approaching through the air, since you can use an aerial to attack the first arm she throws out, but the second one will slam right through you. This also applies to projectiles. The first one can clank while the second one hits you, so unless you can somehow fire 2 projectiles at once, she outzones even zoners. I've always been of the school of thought that seldom is it ever the tactic or option itself that's the source of the people's frustration, rather the absence or limited forms of counterplay for it. This is one key example. Min Min's unreasonably far attack range wouldn't be too big of a problem if you could still contest her from your spot. But with her arms being considered disjointed non-projectiles, you can't reflect them and you can't counter them, forcing you to get up close and personal if you harbor any desire to exert any meaningful pressure on her. Point is, it's unfairly easy for her to play the keep away game. Her innate combination of properties completely invalidates more than half of the roster, and while many wouldn't regard her as top tier, she's without question one of the most frustrating opponents to deal with, and so I think they should find some way to make her arms less overpowering in neutral. Perhaps make it so unless you do smash inputs, she still gets rebounded from the clank the same way her opponent does. The onus will still remain on you to find a way to get within range of her, but she won't invalidate your entire existence in neutral if you're not fast enough to get through. Alrighty, up next we have Rob. Compared to Min Min, Rob is a much more straightforward character. Strong, a little too strong at times, but straightforward. Contributing to his reputation is how effective he is overall. He's proficient at fighting at all 3 ranges. His grounded moves give him fantastic close quarters combat, specifically his notorious down tilt, and he has a couple very fast aerials in the form of forward and up air. Meanwhile, his massive hitboxes and usage of his burners give him excellent mid-range combat too, with attacks like neutral and back air being among the best tools in the game for spacing in neutral. In addition, he has pretty respectable long-range combat through his neutral and down special, capable of racking up serious amounts of damage at no risk to himself. He's a good character overall, and well deserving of a spot in top 10. Naturally, you can justify a lot of different nerfs for him. Some will automatically target his down tilt for being too generous of a move to have on someone who can also play mid and long range. Others might try to figure out some way to nerf his infamous 0 to death cheeses, which once again is kind of absurd to have on someone who can fight at all 3 ranges. Those are valid ways to nerf him, but if I were to go after 1 or 2 specific moves that would have the most impact without necessarily knocking him too many pegs down the tier list, here's what I have in mind. Personally, I find that the source of all of his quote-unquote bullshit stems not from his 0 to death combos, not from his myriad of ways to kill you, or even his down tilt. It's that he can fight at any range. Every fighter, yes, even the top tiers, struggles in at least one range. For example, while Joker has incredible close range pressure and passing grade long range pressure at worst, he can still get outspaced at mid range. He'll have to close the distance if he wants to attack Sephiroth, Cloud, Shulk, Aegis, what have you. Granted, matchup-wise he beats all 4 of them, but only because he can do that really easily. If it were a contest of range though, he loses every time. Now back to Rob. I wouldn't necessarily put his long range pressure in the same ballpark as Samus or Mewtwo, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't better than the majority of the cast. Much of that has to do with how safe and spammable his gyro and laser are, so I want to hit both of them. For laser, I feel like it should be more punishable if blocked or whiffed. The red laser in particular is almost completely unpunishable even at close range. Yes, it's not spammable in the sense that you have to wait a few seconds to charge it back up, but for a transcendent long range projectile, it should really carry more risk when being carelessly thrown around. For example, no one would dare to do a grounded laser on Kazuya because of how laggy it is. As for gyro, give the thing a damn cooldown. It's already extremely fast to frame 9, let alone the massive range of applications for it, from gimping to neutral pressure to stage control to ledge trapping to 0 to deaths. At the very least, there should be some repercussions for the opponent blocking or attacking the gyro. He shouldn't be able to throw another one within mere seconds. By nerfing his range advantage, it puts even more pressure on him to approach and attack his opponent, which gives them more chances to punish him for doing so. Having such good projectiles forces him to play his game, and almost every time he beats them at it. Moving on, we have someone who may not be the biggest defender in the game, but in a similar fashion to Min Min, egregiously unpleasant for a large portion of the cast to face. Game & Watch. Game & Watch has a reputation for being the anti-meta, at least before Fighters Pass 2 came out, and in all honesty, even after. He has an overall positive matchup spread against basically the entire top 20, with his only real difficult ones being Shulk and Aegis. No one will dispute that he's a very good character. What they will dispute is whether or not he's a good character for the right reasons. Like Rob, Game & Watch doesn't have any singular move or even playstyle that you can really cheat on. All of his moves are strong in their own ways. Last week I made a really long video on the best move of each type, and this 2D motherfucker took up like 8 spots or something ridiculous, so nerfing him might just come down to what aspects of him you think are the most annoying. Right away, I think public enemy number 1 is gonna be his up B, widely considered the best up B in the game and one of the best moves in the game period. It single-handedly mitigates his disadvantage state in every which way you can think of. Among many other things, it's amazing for recovery, can escape combos, and is the fastest out of shield option in the game. Truth be told, I don't think this move needs to be nerfed all that much. Yes, it's broken, but it's more annoying than anything else, not really threatening. That being said, I think they should increase the time in between you launching upwards and being able to input something. Game & Watch can act almost immediately upon reaching the apex of his up B. If they increase the lockout time, it would simultaneously handle the risk and reward of using this move. Say we were to increase it by, 8 frames for the sake of argument. At higher percents, Game & Watch won't be able to combo off of it as easily since the opponent would have more time to get away. Therefore, the only thing you would get out of your up B is resetting neutral and a bit of chip damage, rather than an easy setup into juggling your opponent. Secondly, if in the off chance you miss or your opponent blocks up B, they have more time to punish it before you can air dodge or get away. Mockrock actually mentioned how there are some characters who, if they act fast enough, can punish Game & Watch with a double jump up air. Adding more lockout time would allow more characters to attack if it misses. He can keep the frame 3 startup invincibility on Ascent, the sheer verticality of the move and the ability to act out of it, but making it take a bit longer for him to do so will make him a lot more bearable for the cast to deal with without destroying his placement in the tier list. Aside from that, I think they should reduce the damage on Chef. That thing does way too much for how easily it ledge traps on its own. You can take over 30% just trying to get back on solid ground from him mashing the B button. Next up, I want to go over Peach and Daisy. To be fair, they already received quite a few nerfs, especially early on. Dash attack, forward air, and back throw all lost a measurable amount of kill power, which we can actually see the effects of firsthand. I can't begin to count the number of times Mewdace had his opponent at over 150% and was still struggling to find their stock. That being said, they're still one of the best characters in the game with a lot of representation and results across the globe. Maybe not number 9, I think that's too generous, but certainly top 15. Now, you guys probably already know what aspect of the kit I'm thinking of nerfing. As much as it will exacerbate their already existing difficulty in closing stocks, the reason for this nerf comes from more of a game design oriented perspective than balance. Frankly speaking, Ultimate's a game that loves to break its own rules, so by no means am I saying Peach and Daisy are the only ones doing this, but that does not excuse the fact that they fundamentally bypass the universal balancing factor within the game, damage reduction from short hops. For the uninitiated, with Smash Ultimate being the first game to universalize the 3-frame jump squat, when inputting a short hop, aerials deal roughly 15% less damage. This is to account for the supposed faster startup time compared to a full hop. Peach and Daisy can circumvent this damage reduction by inputting a full hop, then using their floating ability to suspend them just above the ground, making them the only characters in the game with full powered aerials off of the distance of a short hop. In fact, that might be precisely why they nerfed the kill power of forward air, one of her best straight hit killing options, to compensate for the fact that she can get full power on it compared to everyone else who loses power from a short hop. In essence, I want to put that short hop reduction on their float state. Make it so if you input a full hop but start floating before reaching a certain amount of jump height, you still get that multiplier. Obviously, they should be allowed the full strength of their aerials if landing into a float or floating at a disadvantage, since everyone gets that, but from the ground, they should be affected by the same rules as everyone else. In exchange, however, they should revert the nerfs to forward air and dash attack just so they don't lose too much kill power. Again, at the risk of saying they need it, this nerf stems from my desire for everyone to be affected by universal mechanics fairly. In practice, while they are top tier, they don't need any more nerfs than they already got, but I feel like it's unfair for them to have full hop aerials from what is basically a short hop if not better. Last up will be Diddy Kong. Full disclosure, this is 100% biased. That being said, I feel like a lot of people would attest to how annoying it is to fight Diddy. He's fast, slippery, and is arguably one of the best item-based projectiles in the game, which is actually what I'll be targeting. Banana. Hear me out. Diddy got nerfed in many ways from Smash 4, but after noteworthy buffs to him, he's made almost a complete return to form. Not a full one, but enough to call him back into question for being a top tier. One aspect affecting that is Banana. His down special was nerfed in some ways, but drastically buffed in others. Banana can now hit opponents twice before disappearing rather than once, massively improving its already wide range of use cases and combo potential. But if that wasn't enough, it also has transcendent priority, so it can phase through hitboxes and strike the opponent even if it comes in contact with another attack or projectile. This gives Diddy an unchallengeable projectile, which is why he's become one of, if not the best anti-sword character in the game. You're understanding now why I'm biased against him, aren't you? There are 3 ways to deal with projectiles: block, avoid, or attack. If the attack is strong enough, it will clank with or overpower the projectile in question. That is, unless it's transcendent, leaving you with just 2 options, block or avoid. Now when it comes to item-based projectiles, the safest option is always to block, because if you're holding an item, any non-special input results in you throwing said item. Grounded or aerial normal, even grabs. In other words, they can't grab you while you're holding an item, so you're perfectly fine shielding until they throw it. Diddy, however, has Monkey Flip, a command grab, letting him punish anyone who understandably holds shield to avoid getting hit by Banana, leaving you with just one option: avoid. Banana should not be transcendent. I'm aware this will completely alter the dynamic of fighting Diddy and will considerably affect his performance against swordies, but an item-based projectile that can set up combos a low to mid % and guarantee kills a high % should not be allowed transcendence, especially on someone with a command grab. At least for someone like Pac-Man, despite his spell being way more threatening than Banana, you can hold shields and be totally safe. Against Diddy, that's not the case. Under no circumstance should he be allowed this privilege. They can buff him in other ways to compensate, but Banana is just not okay. That concludes my list for today. Aside from Diddy Kong, I did my best to be as unbiased as possible with my choices, but I feel like apart from the aforementioned Steve, Sonic, Kazuya, Aegis, and such, the game isn't too unbalanced, compared to another competitive game I played that makes me question my sanity. Feel free to leave your own 5 characters in the comments down below, along with the nerfs you think they should get. For now though, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.